Ever had a conversation with your friends and said, this should be a podcast? Well, this is that. Welcome to Bonnerfide Conversations. What is going on, good people, and welcome to another edition of Bonnerfide Conversations. Of course, I am your host, Gerard Bonner, and I am so excited that we get to spend another week together in great conversation. I hope your week has been fantastic. Please let me know already in the comments, wherever you're listening to this, how your week has been, what has been going on in your world. Those kinds of things really do matter to me. Shout out to all of you who have been joining us, whether you are brand new to what we're doing or you've been here since day one. I honor and value and appreciate you. One of the things that I have come to realize is that you never fully know your impact. And I don't want to jump too heavy into this, but the reality of it is a lot of us are trying to measure impact solely by numbers. So we'll look at our views, we'll look at our likes, we'll look at traffic, and we will try to base our impact on that. When the reality is you will never fully know your reach, your range, and your impact. I was at the store the other day and I saw someone, one of our students, and in seeing them, I spoke to them and I had no idea that they knew my name, but they did. And so sometimes you think that it is, however many people are responding, however many people are commenting or what have you. Not necessarily the case. A lot more people are aware of what you do than you realize. With that said, I would love for you to let me know what you think, right? So feel free to leave a comment wherever it is you're tuning into us, whether that is on the socials, whether it is on your streaming platform of choice, wherever you're checking out the podcast, or whether you're right here on YouTube on the Bonnerfide Media page. Definitely let us know where you're joining us from and how this podcast has impacted you. Last but certainly not least, would you rate and subscribe to this podcast and share it as well? By doing all three, you allow people like you to hear content like this. And I think because you're here, you have come to the space where you recognize, hey, this content is necessary. This content is valuable. So please share this with your friends and loved ones wherever you guys are joining us from. And I hope that it is something that is special to you. I got some feedback last week about one of our listeners who took the time to share what's being said here with one of their coworkers in a conversation. And it really, really provided some insight to them. Like, these are the kinds of things that are exciting and inspiring to me. So would you share this with your friends and loved ones wherever you guys are? And let's make an impact all around the world with the kind of conversation that steps alongside you in your journey. Sure, we love to talk current events and we love to talk tea and things like that. That's we in general. But the kind of conversation that's going to help us as we are navigating transition, as we're navigating new seasons, as we're leaving old seasons, it's this kind of conversation. So my prayer and my hope is that you will connect with this and that you will allow others to connect with it as well. Got a lot of great feedback about last week's conversation about decisions and the power to make decisions, what goes into our decision making, and why some of us have a hard time making decisions. If you missed it or you need to relive it, feel free at any point in time to go back to last week's episodes. And if you'd like, you can feel free to binge watch, binge listen to any of our episodes here. Certainly there's been something very special about this season as I've been sharing with you just some lessons from my own life and experience that I think are universal and will translate to wherever it is you are on your journey. So this week, I want to talk about something that was inspired from a post that I saw. The post came from our friends at Netflix, and it alluded to the fact that we really are getting a reboot to one of my favorite shows of all time, A Different World. If you're watching, you'll see, yes, this is a Hillman t-shirt for Hillman College, who you could not tell me back in the day that Hillman was not a real university. Like, I literally remembered watching A Different World thinking, yes, I want to go to Hillman College, wherever Hillman in the world is. They didn't fully tell us, though. We kind of got the idea that Hillman was in Virginia, and there are those who believe that Hillman College was based on Hampton University. Shout out to HU. I don't know. But what I do know is that Hillman College / Hillman University, not Hillman University, Hillman College, A Different World, all of that was responsible, I believe, for a generation being desiring to go to an HBCU. That is a historically black college and university. What we got to see on our television screens, courtesy of this amazing show called A Different World, changed how many of us viewed college forever. Growing up in New York, we did not have HBCUs in New York. So getting to see what a historically black college and university was like on network television changed my life and ultimately led to me going to Virginia Union University in Richmond, Virginia. Shout out to the Panthers. And I imagine that many of you got to see A Different World or heard about A Different World, or maybe went back on Netflix and watched A Different World and said, I want that to be my experience. So the idea that some 35 years later, this show is getting a reboot with some of the members of the original cast, along with some forward-thinking moments and movements, is very, very exciting to me. And it reminds me that we are indeed in graduation season. So shout out to all of the college graduates who are out there doing big, big things. Shout out to those in high school who are getting ready to graduate or who already may have graduated. What an exciting time to be alive. So before I get into graduation season, I want to talk about Hillman College. And I want to talk about this idea of our impact. I kind of alluded to it when we started today's episode. You know, I can imagine that when the powers that be thought about a spin-off show to the Cosby Show, they had no idea of the long-range impact that this show would have. I mean, if you think about the Cosby Show, and I know some people don't like to talk about the Cosby Show because of what happened with Bill Cosby, but if you can take Bill Cosby, the man, and whatever his indiscretions were out of the picture and look at what the Cosby Show presented to the world, it presented an image of black families in a way we had never seen before. We had seen black families struggling with shows like Good Times, and we saw, black families integrated into other families with shows like Different Strokes. We saw shows like The Jeffersons, which was kind of a picture of what a potentially, successful black family could look like, with George Jefferson, owning his own cleaners and the like. But we had never seen a doctor and a lawyer as mother and father with beautiful children and all of the like. We'd never seen that before. So here it is, the Cosby Show, the #1 show in America at that time. Now, how do we build the legacy of the Cosby Show? We get a spinoff. And the spinoff was initially with daughter Denise Huxtable making her way to her father's alma mater in Hillman College. After season 1, there was a major shift that happened. Debbie Allen comes on as the new executive producer, and this show really starts to take a look at and look like what historically black colleges and universities look like. It was gutsy. It was different. They tackled really difficult issues, from racism to rape and all sorts of issues that they tackled, and they tackled brilliantly. And as they did that, and it lasted for 6 seasons, as the actors went their way and started taking other paths, finding new jobs and opportunities, many didn't understand the impact that Hillman College would have on not just that generation of viewers, but generations gone by or generations to come. And I want to use that to remind you that it is highly likely that you have no real idea of the impact you are making right now. The decisions that you're making, the attitude that you walk through things with, how you step forward in terms of everyday activities, whether it is at work, at school, at home, how you are presenting yourself is actually making an impact on those who are around you and those who are watching you. How you conduct yourself on social media, how you conduct yourself in the store. I often think about, when people see me doing everyday tasks like going for a walk or going to the store or what have you, what impression are they getting? Now, don't get me wrong. We don't necessarily live our lives so everybody can wave the flag of how great we are, because if you are doing all of that, hoping for someone to co-sign you, to affirm you, it's a strong likelihood that you'll be disappointed. But in reality, our lives are impacting the lives of other people. We can't get away from that. We cannot get away from the idea that what we do will have an impact on somebody somewhere. So, how much are you considering that when you're making decisions? When you get cut off on the road and you're experiencing road rage, what impression are you leaving in how you deal with that? Are you following the person to give them a piece of their mind or a piece of your mind? Or are you that person who cusses and fusses in the car with your kids or your passengers there in the background? We don't often think of that because we're often dealing with our own emotions in a given moment. And we don't consider how what we are doing is impacting someone else. Now, that's with our everyday tasks. Truth be told, so much of who I am, good or bad, was passed down to me by watching my parents, by watching my aunts and uncles, by watching those in the community with which I lived. I never told them in the moment, hey, I'm watching you. I'm learning how to do this from watching you. No, it just became a part of me. I think, and I've told the story before, of how I would sit in the back seat when my parents would drive from Monticello to Washington, D.C., and they would say, hey, I hate driving to this city because I always get lost. So in my mind, it made me go, I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. And so I went to college in Richmond, Virginia, 90 miles away from Washington, D.C. I'm thinking about Monticello. And I didn't go to D.C. while I was in school in Richmond. It wasn't until I lived in Virginia Beach that I started taking trips to Washington, D.C. And really, the first of those trips was about work, and I was nervous and scared. But then when I got there, I realized, wait a minute, I'm not going to get lost in this city. I have GPS, which my parents didn't have then, though they had maps. And I didn't realize in those moments just how much being in earshot of what they said impacted me. And so I want to tell you that you should be mindful of your actions, be mindful of your attitude, be aware that how you handle a situation is being watched, and you often don't know who your audience is. Let me help you with something. For those who are creating content, or for those who are in entertainment and they are doing a movie or doing a play or a television show, perhaps you are an athlete, a professional athlete, or just an athlete at a local level. You don't know the people who are in the audience. It is impossible to know how many people are in the audience and know all of their story and know how they are impacted by what you're doing. I equally think about, if you're watching a performance and you watch that performance, whether it is a solo artist with background vocalists or it is a larger ensemble like a choir. I know for me, my eyes usually get fixated on one person, whether it's the director or someone in the choir, whether it is the artist or a musician. My eyes get fixated on them because I'm watching how this music impacts them. I'm watching how powerful their performance is. And many times they don't know me from a hole in the wall. They're just trying to finish their job. They're just trying to perform successfully. They're just trying to do what is required of them. But for me and for you, it is a completely different experience. I remember watching The Sounds of Blackness, and there was this one lady, I don't know her name, but she captured my attention because of the way she performed, because of how into the music she was, and how much the performance really did take over her, and how she embodied that. Never met her. We made eye contact once or twice, and she could tell there was a connection, but I didn't see her. I don't know her. I don't know anything about her other than the fact that years later, I can still think about that performance. What are you doing that's going to impact someone else? And I want to say that from a space of encouragement to those who feel like, no one's paying attention to you. You feel like you're forgotten. You feel like the numbers are not really reflecting who you are or the caliber of your content. Let me tell you something. Somebody is watching and they're making a decision based on how you present and how you operate. So don't crash out at the moment when the numbers aren't reflecting just the greatness of what you feel like you're presenting. Don't crash out when you've been put into the hands of people who have chosen to drop you instead of carry you. Don't crash out. Crash out is what everybody wants to do these days because they just want to get their emotions out and they just want to express how utterly disappointed they are. And perhaps your crash out might be warranted, but it is not ideal. It is not going to have the impact that you'll think. I can't tell you how many legacies have been tarnished because of a crash out. I can't tell you how many people forget about all the good things you've done because of a major crash out that you had. This reminds me of my cousin, and when I say his name, for those who are fans of football and of the Dallas Cowboys specifically, you will remember, watch this, Leon Lett. You probably didn't know that was my cousin, but he is. I met him before he joined the Cowboys at a family reunion. Second cousin, great guy. Did some great defensive things when he played for both the Cowboys and the Broncos. But people only remember one moment, the mistake he made in the Super Bowl when he got so excited and he had the ball and he was running to the end zone and he put the ball too close to the ground. And when he did that, somebody came and knocked the ball out of his hands and cost him a touchdown. People look at that as a blooper, as a stain, and they have unfortunately defined and remembered his career by that. They don't know a single stat from Leon Lett. They don't even know what he's doing right now. All they know is that play. I just want to tell you that the crash out that you're about to have, you need to rethink it because people will remember that moment far more than they remember all of the other things you did. The flip side is also true. They'll remember how you responded to a less than favorable moment. They're watching how you're dealing with the adversity in your life. They're watching how you're dealing with what happens when you've been wronged. Do you take to social media and crash out? Do you feel like airing all of what happened to you in the attempt to quote unquote clear your name? Not understanding that if you just keep on living, if you just keep on doing the right thing, your brand will ultimately be a reflection of what you have consistently done. So all of this fighting that so many people do to try to clear their name and to try to make sure everybody thinks well of them, just be consistent. Let me say it again. Just be consistent. If you would learn to be consistent and consistently do the good thing, then what will happen is there will be enough content, there will be enough memories of the good things that the moment of humanity or the moments of humanity that you have will not be remembered. In fact, you'll have to be the one that reminds people that such and such happened in your life. I can tell you this from experience. I don't sit up and spend time rehearsing the negative things that have happened in my life. Yes, there have been some things in my life that I did not like. There have been some things in my life that were not favorable. But you'll only hear about them when there's a story to turn around. Good God. You'll only hear about them when there's a lesson that you can extract. You're not going to hear about them as they're happening because it's not healthy. And I think too many of us have gotten into the space where we're willing to just say whatever because we need to get it off of our chest. We'll say it in the wrong platforms, and then we'll wonder why people look at us a certain way. Because you've given too much information and you didn't give it at the right time. Who on earth would serve people cake batter? We like cookie dough in ice cream, but cookie dough by itself is not healthy. Cake batter by itself is not healthy. Giving somebody something before it's time will be detrimental. This is why you have to be careful what you do and why you do it. It's why you cannot allow your emotions to overtake and control you. You've got to get those things together, my friend. You cannot be the person who lives for the crash out. You cannot be the person who wears their emotions on their sleeve. You will lose job after job and opportunity after opportunity if your emotions are what guide you. Your emotions are supposed to inform you, not guide you. And then, as one of my dear friends tells me, you have to learn how to vet your emotions. Why do you feel the way you feel? So many people have told themselves inaccurate stories solely based on their feelings. They have made up an entire narrative that the whole world is against them because they put a couple of things together and their 2 + 2 = 5. So it must be right because that's what I feel. Friend, no. Your emotions should not be given the opportunity to control you. I live by a certain equation, and the equation, I've told it to you before, but I need to tell you again. It's E + R = O. That is emotion or event, rather. It's event plus response equals the outcome. The event is something you cannot change. Okay. I cannot change the fact that, hey, there may have been an accident. I cannot change the fact that, hey, you know what? They may have made some decisions at work that I don't agree with. You may not be able to change the weather. That's the event. But your response determines the outcome. So if you respond to everything that happens to you in a negative way, the outcome will feel and be negative. I'm often told by one of my friends that, hey, you know what? I can always tell when you're in traffic. Because when you're in traffic, you're going to say you're in traffic. And you're going to talk about how it impacts your time. Well, you know what I realized? When they said that, okay, I need to fix that. I need to get that right. Some of my other friends have told me, hey, you know what? You are hangry. We need to make sure you eat. I didn't think that was an issue, but enough people have told me, hey, you know what? You are not consistently you when you're hungry. I've had to work on that. And I've been given, unfortunately, opportunities to work on that. Yes, I've been hungry and I've had to be aware. Hey, I can't be upset when I'm hungry. I need to go find something to eat so I don't mistreat people, so I don't say the wrong thing. Because here's what can happen. I can have a moment when I am hangry and I can look a certain way. I can say something a certain way, and I may not mean any harm, but it could cause somebody harm, and they can walk away thinking, I don't like them. I don't care about them. I'm mean. I lack compassion. When the truth of it is, on my end, I was hungry. Yeah. So I have to manage my emotion so that someone does not unnecessarily get impacted. And all of us have that same level of responsibility. We cannot allow what happens in our world to allow our emotions to override our intellect. Truth be told, you know that person's not a bad person. They're just having a bad moment or a bad day. So don't treat them like they're having bad character when it's been demonstrated that over time, they really do treat you well. Now, here's the flip side. The flip side is you also need to be a wise judge of character and be able to determine the movie and not the moment. Let me explain. If you catch someone in a moment that happened in that particular moment, that's not necessarily the totality of their existence or the totality of their character. You have to weigh multiple things to be able to determine the movie. What is the theme of how this person behaves? What is the theme of what it is they are doing? Are they constantly a person who doesn't think about other people? Or did they just have a moment? I've had to do this when it comes to friendships and relationships. I've had to ask myself, okay, is this person busy in the moment, or are they just too busy for me? And here is where we dig. Because for a lot of us, we keep telling ourselves, oh no, they didn't really mean it. And it's the 7th time it happened. It's the 10th time they didn't return your call. It's the 10th time that they got so busy that, oh, I'm just not good with returning text messages. No, let's get some accountability here. You just don't value our communication enough to respond in a timely manner. Because I guarantee you, if you were looking for a text from a particular person, you would respond to it quickly. But because it's so-and-so, you put it to the side. So if you want to demonstrate that it's important, you need to figure out some sort of mechanism and system in your world so that you don't keep missing people's text messages, so that you don't keep missing people's phone calls, so you don't keep missing the opportunities to show up for people. This is where we have to, again, manage our emotions and be able to tell a story based on the totality of what has happened and not just a single moment in time. Yes, people are human and they get the right to make a mistake. But after a while, those same mistakes really become patterns. For instance, if you're late one moment, okay, that's a moment, you got stuck in traffic, et cetera, et cetera. But if you know it takes you 30 minutes to get to work and you live in a city and you move at a time where there's traffic, you now need to allot time for that. People make fun of me all the time because they know one thing about Gerard, he's not going to be late, because that is a value for me. And I now, put and build all of this time around ensuring that I'm not going to be late. Where do your values lie such that you make adjustments to allot for what is important to you? So when we talk about impact, you have to consider all of those things. When you are late repeatedly, for you, it's an excuse. You intended to be on time, but you were really late, and it happened all the time. So now, for the person who's on the other end of it, they've now built a story and a case for you. And the case is, you know what? This person might be amazing, but they're always late. So can I hand them something that's time sensitive? Probably not. So that I don't get embarrassed, let me not give it to them. Let me give it to somebody else. Do you see how these actions impact your opportunities? So you are making an impression on somebody when you choose to be late, when you choose not to pay attention to certain things. Or on the flip side, when you choose to allow your resilience not to harden you. When you allow your heart to remain soft, even though you've been disappointed. Those things make an impact. And that leads to what Hillman College was really all about. It wasn't just about showcasing an experience. It was also about the power of graduation. And I want to tell you, for everyone who has graduated from college and high school, congratulations. You have accomplished something significant. But I also want to help you with something. Your celebration, your graduation, your matriculation doesn't stop in these moments. Oh no, because you are in the school of life. And inside of life, There's an awful lot of things that happen that will give you the space to graduate if you're willing to pass life's tests. And let me just tell you this. Life doesn't stop lifing once you get to a certain age. Some of us have said, hey, if I can just get out of high school, if I can just get out of my parents' house, if I can just get out of college, I'll be living the good life. Only to discover there are new experiences waiting for you. There are new responsibilities that are sitting at your feet that you've got to do something about. And the reality of it is, if you don't recognize that, oh, wow, I'm in this experience to learn, then you'll never get out of it. You know, every now and again, I like to give you Bible because that's what I believe and that's how I operate. I'm reminded of the children of Israel, the Israelites, God's chosen people, who spent 40 years traveling a space that was only supposed to take them 11 days. Can you imagine you've allotted 3 hours for a trip and it takes you 3 months? That is how a lot of us live. You were only supposed to be in that space for a certain amount of time. But because you did not learn the lesson, you had to repeat that place over and over again. Because you did not obey the directions and instructions to get out, you just kept going around in circles over and over. You have lived Groundhog Day for 3 years. There was a relationship that was supposed to teach you a lesson. Wow. But because you didn't want to be alone, you stayed in a toxic space that has now poisoned you. Now you don't want to be involved with anybody, or you don't feel comfortable enough to make the decisions to move forward. People have poisoned you so long till that, you don't even know who you are anymore because you stayed in a space longer than you were supposed to. Nobody looks at the person who's 22 still in high school as the cool kid on campus. No, that's not how that works. If you're 22 and you're still in high school, it says that something didn't go right. And we can't always blame the institution. Jesus. We cannot blame the high school for why you didn't graduate 6 times. And I don't want to sound harsh because I'm not trying to sound harsh. I'm trying to bring up a point that says you've got to hurry up and learn the lesson so you can graduate and get to the space you're supposed to be in. Because the truth of it is, high school graduation is an event to be excited about. But you can't miss the plot, my friends. The whole idea of high school was supposed to train you to be able to be functional either in college or in the outside world. You got to be able to operate outside. And that's why you go to high school. And that's why you go to college. Not to be that person who just can't stop getting degrees. Those degrees are supposed to turn you into something. And if you're not extracting the lesson, you are doomed to repeat it. One of these days, I'm going to have to bring on some of my friends because I talk about my friends all the time. One of my friends told me this. We were talking about the strength that they gathered, and they realized that they gathered that strength in unfortunate and unfavorable situations. And as we were talking, they were realizing, hey, I don't want to have to be in another unfavorable situation to use that skill set. And that is so in line with what we're talking about, because you will not appreciate graduation. You won't even approach graduation if you're still stuck in the environment of the lesson that you were already supposed to learn. If the only way I can learn is to go back to high school, I'm in trouble. I'm supposed to be able to take 2 + 2 and not just use it for an exam in high school. Though if I'm in high school, I shouldn't be doing just 2 + 2. But let's stay on course. Let's stay focused. I'm supposed to be able to use 2 + 2 when I'm trying to determine how much change somebody's supposed to get. I'm supposed to be able to use 2 + 2 when I'm trying to figure out a budget for living every day. Okay, so my rent is this much, and these bills and utilities are this much, and food is going to cost this much. So how much do I need to live? But if you're only focused on I have to be in school to figure that out, you're going to miss the plot. So here's what I want to tell you before I go. That job that you're no longer on wasn't just about you making money. It was about a skill set you were supposed to pick up. That relationship wasn't just about the good times you were having. There's a skill set you're supposed to pick up. The friendship that didn't go right, there's a skill set you're supposed to pick up. And graduation only happens once you have demonstrated that I have effectively learned the lesson and I can pass the final exam. And for some of us, we've been taking and retaking these finals over and over. And wow, because some of us are gun shy when it comes to taking tests. I've heard it said all the time. Some people are just like, well, I don't test well. Well, my friend, you got to figure out how are you going to demonstrate the knowledge that you have in order to graduate? Because a school cannot allow you or approve you to graduate until you've demonstrated that you know the concepts. And let me help you. Dropping out of school isn't the answer. You've got to be willing to learn the lesson and demonstrate your ability to learn said lesson. Because if you will do that, you will find that you can matriculate to the next space and you can extract the lesson and leave the experience. My friends, you don't have to keep rehearsing and repeating bad experiences. You just need to extract the lesson. It reminds me of if you're going to drink orange juice. You don't always have to have oranges nearby and figure, well, okay, I have to cut the orange and I have to then squeeze it into my mouth. No. You can go somewhere that actually specializes in orange juice with pulp or freshly squeezed orange juice. But it doesn't require you having to go to Florida and pick oranges from the orange tree. Some of us feel like the only way we can demonstrate a certain character trait or a certain lesson learned is to revisit the place we learned it. No, my friends, I want to free you because some of us have stayed stuck in places too long because you feel like the only way for me to demonstrate this lesson is to revisit the circumstances that created it. No. It's time for you to learn how to get out of those places. It's time for you to learn how to graduate. And if you're going to graduate, you only get to graduate when you have demonstrated that you've learned the lesson. So thank you, Hillman College, for teaching me, number one, that impact will last far longer than the event I did. The reality is Hillman College is a fictitious university. A Different World was only on for 6 seasons, but 35 years later, you can now watch it on streaming platforms. 35 years later, its impact is so great that we're getting a reboot. I want to encourage you. Your impact is greater than you realize, but you got to stick with it. And when it's time to graduate, when it's time to move to the next phase, don't be so stuck in where you are that you can't embrace where you're going. You didn't spend time at that school to stay at that school. You can revisit for homecoming if you feel like it. But that school was designed to help you make an impact in the real world. You're now supposed to be able to take those skills and develop your own business or go work in a great business, make a great salary, live a great life. But you don't have to stay in the school that you've already graduated from. I hope you are hearing me. Because some of us have grown out of situations and we're allowing loyalty or fear to cause us to stay in those same places. When, my friend, you need to get out and you need to go do what all of that lesson was intended for you to do. All right, guys, that's my time. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I hope it has made a significant impact in your world. Would you let me know wherever you're viewing this or listening to it? Let me know how this is impacting you, because I'm telling you guys, some of us have graduated and stayed in spaces far too long, and it's now turning against you. I gotta go. But I'll just say this: the same milk that does your body good, when it stays too long, can be toxic and poison you. Don't let that environment that you're supposed to graduate from turn you into a bitter and toxic person because you didn't leave in time. All right, I got to get out of here. Have a great day. Again, follow me on the socials at Bonnerfide. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. And I promise you, we are going to get through this thing called life together as we continue these Bonnerfide conversations. Have a great day, guys.